All right, cool. All right, so next segment, we're going to talk about
Next.
relaxation. Next.
Next.
And this is one of those things that you talk about all the time.
Because it's a cornerstone of being able to do any work. Seriously. It's like if you can't relax, forget it. You can't do this shit. I'm sorry, but you can't.
Yeah.
It's like and so one of the big things for me is getting people to switch, their paradigm from thinking that, they really want to do this, but they really want to do this is like the way they really want to do other things. They put a lot of, not just attention on it, but they want to, force a lot of things. They want to force themselves to do more and do this and do that. And it's like as soon as you use that word force, you're negating, the effect that you're going to have, on, within this realm of energy work, if you want to call it that or whatever. So, and it is working with energy, it's like in this case, we're trying to do things that will help us change our perceptual state so that we can see energy, perceive it. We call it seeing because we have to have, it's contrived, right? We have to have some way to identify what we're doing, but really what it is, are we actually seeing it with our physical eyes? No. That's the bottom line. No, it's not that. We're using, but we're not seeing any of this with our physical eyes, really. It's like we're taking in these, reflections, the light from whatever source bouncing off a certain thing, material thing, and that's getting projected in through our eyes. We're capturing that through our eyes, the resonance of that or the vibration of that, right? And then our brain is, tweaking all these chemicals and, and making a picture out of that that represents something to us in our minds. We still don't really have a clue, technically how that works. We have some ideas, but it's not so sound as that. So, this is just one more way to sort of tweak our sensitivity levels and tweak our perceptual states so that we can see a different aspect of that same, a different vibrational level or a different frequency level.
And yet, when you are seeing energy, it is like you are seeing it with your physical
Yeah, you wouldn't
eyes.
know the difference. That's why I think it gets confusing, and I think
Right.
that's why it's one of the reasons it's difficult to do it is because people are trying to see it, and it's like no matter how good because people ask me all the time, oh, I wear glasses. Do I have to take my glasses off to do this? No. Do I have to keep my glasses on so I can see clearly? No. It's like, it's a perceptual state, right? So yeah, you can, you'll be able to see it
But I
either
just
way.
think it's clear. I just want to make it clear, too, that it's not like when you're talking about seeing energy, it's not like your perception of the world is the same and you just have a different feeling about it.
Yeah, in this case, we want to be really clear that for us, because people will tag that on to stuff like, yes, I can see energy, but I feel it more than, well, that's not seeing, to me. That's, use a different word for that. You feel energy,
Right.
Or, you have a tactile sensation of that, or you have a somatic feeling that you associate with that, or an emotional
Right.
sensation.
But what you're talking about is seeing a pattern of color and light and movement,
Right.
as if it was physical around
Correct.
and within objects and
Correct.
people. And
Yeah, absolutely.
And very detailed, and as detailed as you have the ability to make it and focus on it.
Right, exactly. So, and that just takes, the initial part isn't so hard, to some extent, it's not so hard, but then, working it to get it to that whatever level of detail you want, well, that can take some tweaking, and definitely some exercising on your part to be able to, it's not just being able to, get to that perceptual state. It's also the ability to hold it for an extended period of time if you need to, right? It's not just a snapshot. It's not Carillion photography where I'm just taking a picture of it and then I have that to look at later. It's constantly changing and in flux. So, yeah, you need to be able to sustain that perceptual state, which means you're sustaining yourself in a very, specific state, yourself. Your frequencies change to be able to perceive that. And you get
Right.
better and better at turning it on and off, or
And that's
ramping
the
it up or
key,
down.
right? That it's not like you're, just switching. I don't know. I mean, you are switching neural pathways, let's say, or incorporating different neural pathways, but you're changing your state to shift into this different perceptual state, and that's the reason why relaxation is so important, right?
Right.
Because you need to be in that relaxed physical state
Right.
to shift to a different energetic configuration.
Right. I mean, we often say, relaxation is the bridge. I use that all the time, right? It's
Right.
the bridge state between one place and another. But we can also think of it from a like a mechanical vehicle type of reference point. We can say, going into relaxation is sort of like going into neutral. When you're shifting a car or a truck, that's a standard shift, right? It doesn't matter what kind it is. When you're doing that, you're always passing neutral to get to another gear, whether it's up or down, at least, with a sports car or something like that, right? I'm always going through neutral to get to another gear. And so relaxation is much like that. In order for me to ramp up or down, I need to pass through neutral. And so neutral is that relaxation state before I got to go into neutral first, and then from that place, I can move that frequency. I can tune my frequency to the level that I need it for whatever it is that I'm trying to achieve.
Right.
And so, relaxation becomes key. So, and it's not always like, we don't always have the time to be able to, take 20 minutes to relax, or 40 minutes to relax, or an hour to relax, right? Sometimes it's on the fly, so we've got to be able to do it relatively quickly. And that means practice, basically, like anything else. There's practice in relaxation and getting it better and better and deeper and deeper. And also to be able to pull it into a certain place, a specific location, and as quick as you can. It's not always that quick, but, it's got to, you'll get to the point where it does get very quick, where you can sort of maneuver into that place within a breath, or, that's usually what I'm thinking is ideal, is to be able to take a breath and sort of move myself into that state. So, but it started from, spending an hour getting into relaxation, or 40 minutes getting into relaxation, 30 minutes into relaxation, 10 minutes into relaxation, and then finally, working it through to the point where, relaxation comes much quicker at the, more or less the drop of a hat, by giving myself the signal to move into that place. So, and it's always my default pattern. Again, it's like when anything happens, I'm always going to that neutral spot, because it's sort of from that place, I get a broader view of what's going on. I'm not hyper reactional, in any sense in that way. I'm not jumping on something. I mean, if I have to move quickly, I do, right? We're not talking about, every situation. Of course, there's situations where you have to move instantly. It's like you're not going into a relaxed state when a car's bearing down on you, right? You're jumping out of the way. It's not like I have to go into that place, but the idea is that, but I'm also not tensing so much that I freeze, right? That's not a good idea, because you're not going to be able to get out of the way quick enough, right? So it's being able to understand what's happening and move into, what you need to do to be able to respond to that in whatever way that you need to, that you think is going to be most appropriate at the time.
Right.
So so relaxation is crucial to any energy work, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah. And can you talk a little bit more about that idea of force versus power? And because as I've been practicing relaxation, one of the things that's really helped me recently has been, really adopting that stance that when I sit down to do meditation, or I sit down to do an exercise or whatever, I don't have to strain to focus my mind on what I'm trying to do, but that initial response of sitting down and really having that attitude of like completely letting go and almost not trying to control my mind or anything like that right from the beginning has been like, it just, huge. And again, like just like you started the conversation saying like, I'm going to try this new thing, I'm going to learn this new technique, I'm going to try as hard as I can, you know, I'm going to push it, I'm going to force my third eye to open, I'm going to like really work it, you know, and I just can't even express enough, at least for myself, how long it's taken to shift gears and like really just understand it's like let go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let the process unfold.
Yeah.
You know, that's the idea. It's like, you know what you need to do. You've identified the technique that you're going to use to do that. But I can tell you that most times, regardless of what you're trying to do, whatever technique it is and whatever you're trying to achieve in the end, you know, when you come to a certain point and you feel that it's sort of stalling or it's harder to get through that territory or whatever, literally 90%, if not more, of the time, it's because somebody's tense that starts to stall in a territory, in a certain territory, right? So the very first thing that, you know, I've trained myself to do, and you know, I'm not that smart, so it's like I've been told to do all this, and you know, and again, it's one of those things where I had very good teachers, and they all said, you know, don't believe me, you know, try it, do it, and if it doesn't work for you, we'll scrap it and try a different way to get you to that place. There's a lot of ways to get there. So, but the idea is that, you know, you don't have to believe something right away, right? It's like you want to try it and give it, you know, give it a fair try, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what I would say with any of these things too. I really try to hold myself to that. You know, it's like, yeah, if you're gonna, you know, latch onto one of my stories or do whatever that, if that helps you sort of build up your adventure, sense of adventure or excitement about something, that's great. But don't try to make your experience exactly like mine, because you're not me. And it doesn't mean anything. I'm not so special, but the idea is that, you know, I have different life experiences. I have some everybody out there will have had, you know, and some nobody will have had. So it makes me a fingerprint like everyone else. And so, you know, the idea is that I want to teach people the principles so that they can apply them and give them a fair shake and, you know, utilize them and see how they're going to blend with their own way of doing things. So in the end, when all's said and done and you've achieved your goals, you know, it's because your practice has become idiosyncratic. It's not a dogmatic, you know, carbon copy of somebody else's. And I can tell you, there's the other thing besides being tense, the thing that can stymie people's growth the most is thinking that they have to achieve exactly the same results as somebody else. I don't care who the teacher is. You know, that it never works out. It never works out. You're going to be beating your head against the wall. You know, it should be this color and da 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 da. You know, it's like, you know, I don't want to get too specific, but that's the idea. You know, so it's like, look, you know, you apply the principle and do the work, and you know, and then see what kind of experience you have, and then gauge it against, you know, what it is that you want. We've already established what do you want, why do you want it, you know. So okay, once I have that, you know, down, it's like, here's where I'm going toward. I'm always gauging what I'm doing toward that end goal, right? So, and in doing any technique, how much closer does that get me, or does it take me off the track, or does the phenomena stymie me in some way to getting to that goal? I'm always course correcting to that end point, right? So it's like I take off from one place and I start to drift, and then I'm course correcting as quickly as possible to that place.
So is part of what you're saying, like for some people when they sit down to do an exercise where I'm talking about like, I try really hard or something, like some people might not be focused enough or something, and so it's a balancing act. And so this whole thing about teaching to the principles is like, you know, trying to articulate that over and over again, and then people have to adjust themselves to their own tendencies and find out where they're, you know, either to this or to that or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, speaking directly to that, I mean, I find that students, you know, hold their own feet to the fire way more than I ever would.
Yeah.
Because we're hard on ourselves, right? It's
Sure.
like we already go into it thinking, well, I might not be able to do this, or, you know, like, oh yeah, he did this from a child, so it's, you know, I'm 50, I can't do this, or whatever it is.
Right.
You know, it's you know, or I tried this technique, it didn't work out for me, or I had a bad experience, I can't do this. And so you know, if they start thinking it's a lot of, there's all these things, if I don't see it this way, then I'm wrong and I can't do this. And no. Be a little bit, we all know, I'm sorry, if we're all adults here, we know when we're doing enough and when we're not doing enough. We know. I don't believe it. I don't buy the fact that people don't know when they're not doing enough. If they think they're doing, enough, but they're really slacking, I don't think there really are that many people out there that don't know the difference. I just have never come across that many people that, most times they'll come and they'll say, oh, I could do more. And I'm like, take it easy. It's like, you're doing well, you're continuing to do this. That's a good thing. It's like, you don't need to beat yourself up and put more pressure on yourself. More pressure it's only going to make you more tense, and that's going to be one more barrier you have to escape to get into the zone where you need to be. It's about relaxing. This is not, a life or death situation where, oh, if I can't see, you're going to get chopped up when, the next morning when you come out of the training area. No, that's not the case, right? So, be adventurous about it, be happy about it, go into it expecting to get something great. That's a huge thing. Don't go in there thinking, oh, I gotta do this. If you're beating yourself or whatever about this, where's the fun in that? Where's the enjoyment in that? Like I said, everything's not fun, but, I've got to at least feel that there's some enjoyment in it somewhere, like even the anticipation of it, getting that down so that it can propel me forward to reach my goal. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know. I can think of plenty of courses in school that I took that weren't fun, but they were necessary to get my goal. Mm-hmm. So there was sort of like, oh, at least there's an anticipation of like, oh, I'm going to do well in this and then I can get my goal, right? So good. It doesn't mean like, oh, I just love this course. I wish I could do this for the rest of my life. Not so much, So don't put horrible extremes on yourself. It's just going to make you more tense. It's going to give you far more things to fail at when you get in there. It's like, you need to feel like no matter what happens, you succeeded every time you go in to do some work. Just getting in there and sitting down is succeeding, because it's where 90% of the people can't do that. They can't, they won't. Let's not say they can't. Let's say they won't. They desire to have this. They desire to do whatever. But they can't, they won't force themselves to go through the process. They won't force themselves to take the time out of whatever schedule they have. And, I won't bash the TV again, but that's the idea. It's like they're, things that give them immediate vacancy or whatever is far more important to them than sitting down and preparing for something else, or doing things now that will help them have a better life, right from now all the way through to reaching their goal, right? And after that fact, because there's another aspect of it too, right? That it's like, even when I reach my goal, I can't sit there, right? And so if I don't do all of these, if I don't learn a number of things on the way to the goal, if that's not part of it, when I hit the goal, I'm just going to lose that because I don't know what to do with it from there. I can't rest there. I can't just sit on this plateau, right? I've got to keep moving. I got to keep going, right? And it's not a frenetic idea. It's just the idea that it's, like you need to keep growing, right? As long as you're here, you have to keep growing. And so, getting to that place, it doesn't give you any idea of how you're going to live in that place. And so you're using these same techniques to sort of perceive it and flesh it out, and all the lessons that you learned along the way are going to help you be able to maneuver in that new environment in a good way without losing it, right? It's the same way that that's the real reason why people that win the lottery, most of them are broke or in jail within 5 years, right? Because they were thrust into what we would consider to be an outrageously successful environment, but they have no clue how to maneuver in that environment. And so the end result is, even though they have the resources, it's a nightmare for them. It ends very badly. So for most, the vast majority. And so, but that's the reason. So, all of these techniques, they're not only doing something now and moving you toward that, but they're also producing effects that, as you accumulate more and more of those situations, you can use those to know how to maneuver within that new environment once you get there. Because up till that point, you have no idea what it's like in that environment. It's like where you are doesn't have a lot to do with where you want to be. So, moving there, it's sort of like moving to a new country or moving to a new world even, right? It's like it is a new world for you. It's
And
like,
you think that this is that.
yeah, this is that. So it's like, it will give you tools to be able to manipulate yourself in that place and mobile around in it in a very good way without losing it, basically. I mean, nobody wants to hit their goal and then take a nose plant on, once they get there. I mean, that kind of sucks, right? So, the idea is that, if these techniques are done well, and if they're, you put enough emphasis on them, and you relax into them, and you enjoy them, and you're not so tough with yourself, and you manipulate them, and you work within them, and have them work on you, then you're going to have this ability, once you reach your goal, to sort of have this tool set that you can use to manipulate yourself in that place and maneuver around within it, right? And because I'm using these to adjust myself, that territory is there.
What territory is there?
Whatever your desire is, whatever your goal is, that territory exists, it's there. You're just trying to insinuate yourself into that place.
Right.
But just because it's there doesn't mean you have any idea what it's like to be there.
Right.
So all of these little techniques along the way will start to acclimate you to that slowly but surely, and give you different references. If you're aware, it's going to show you different aspects that you need to engage, so that when you're there, you've got the tool list that you need in order to really, maneuver in there comfortably. There'll be things that you didn't think of and that will come up that you'll have to think about. But if you fall back, if you relax, if you don't freak out, if you don't tense up, right? If you relax and say, okay, what do I have in my tool chest here that I can use to fix this, to manipulate it, and work on myself to sort of, get into a comfortable position there. I think that's a big part of it. And so, that's a long explanation for relaxation, but it's like, it's all these little threads that come in that help, to give people a more broad understanding of why relaxation is so important.
Right. Well, another thing that you said earlier was that tension is holding your third eye closed.
Absolutely.
So it's like, and when you said that, for me, it was like, oh, right. Why that's a key to doing.
Yeah, because it's like, if you think about it, it's, it's the opposite of what most people think. It's like, a lot of the visualizations that they use in the East, it's like when the chakras open, including the third eye, it's like this closed flower bud, and then it's sort of like, we can see from National Geographic or whatever time-lapse photography as it's opening, right? It's sort of like this opening and rotating at the same time. So it's, sort of splaying out like that. And that's, this is tense. This is relaxed. So if it's like this to begin with, and you put more force and more tension on it, it's just going to bind itself up even more. Right? You can't force it open, or you can, but it'll not be a good end result.
Right.
And so it's the relaxation that lets it open up, right? So that's the idea. And so, when we have that sort of idea, even if you can't hold that visualization, it doesn't matter. The visualization is not the idea. When you have the sense of that happening, as you, just think about that, it's going to actually, and you relax more, you're going to actually have that sensation of something almost rotating and, opening itself to the sun, basically. That's the way I always think of it. You want to see the light, you want to see the illumination, you want to see that light of energetic underpinnings. that's like the sun. It's deeper than that. So it's that energetic sun. And in order for my third eye or this chakra to open and perceive that, I need it to relax and open up to that. It's not about binding it tighter by banging on it and putting more force on it and trying to, force it open.
Can you say that again? About the difference between the physical sun and the energetic sun?
There's this idea that, everything that has a physical presence has an energetic presence as well, right? So people, it's easy to think about with people with different types of energy bodies, right? The etheric and the, and whatever we want to call it, out and out, different modes of that. And, but also with material objects. So there's, an aspect of them that has an energetic link in a different, well, let's call it a different dimension at this point, right? So, a different level of existence. And so again, when we're thinking of, seeing something, in its, the energetics of it, right? Or that illumination that's coming from it, what are we seeing? We're seeing, an aspect of it that's more closely linked to, its original model, let's put it that way, original model in, this astral level or a different dimension where that's situated, right? So, and in, it's still there. I mean, all of this stuff is contrived, right? The over there or out there or in there or whatever. It's like, it's all just right here, right now. It's just that, we have to have some place to start. So we have to build some type of language around it. And, but in the end, we know that this language is, just contrivances that we use to sort of get to the starting gate and get people to sort of engage. And that's why I use so many different terms all the time, because, different analogies will hit different people, and it'll be, where one doesn't make any sense to somebody, another one will make perfect sense to them. And so I think there's a lot of ways to get it. I'm constantly trying to tweak that, which, when I'm talking to you, I'm constantly trying to manipulate things. And it's like I'm working through it on my own all the time, trying to explain it in a way that will make the most sense to the most people.
Right. Stimulate connections on an easier way. Yeah.
And it's funny, when that happens, you can just see people light up.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're making those correspondences together, and it's like things that they've learned in the past and things that they're projecting out into the future. And you say just the right thing, and all of a sudden that starts to light up like a string of lights, right? Like Christmas lights, bing, 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 bing. And then it's like the more of those lights that are there, right? It illuminates the area, and all of a sudden they have this understanding of what they're doing, and then they go into it so much differently, right? Because it's just, it's like they can see what it is.
Right.
And, it gives them that excitement, that adventure, that sense of adventure and joyful effort, like, oh, now I know, okay, I'm going to really embrace this and go for it and really try and, stimulate this so I can really, have the experience of it. It's not just an intellectual understanding anymore. It's not just an intellectual belief. It's like I really am experiencing this. And that's, a wonder, really. And, it's like one of those things in life that's just, it blows open your whole life experience, basically, which is fantastic, in my way of thinking.
Yeah. Mine too. Yeah.
Yeah. You've had some pretty incredible instances yourself of this type of stuff. So it's like, what I'm talking about. It's, and many, many of my other students have had similar experiences,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. It's just, if you put the time in and you do the right things, you're going to get the right results.
Cool.
So that's it.
So I think I was going to have you take us through a relaxation exercise or an outline of it, but instead I think we'll just record a guided meditation that people can download, and that way they can get a sense. And of course, in all of the guided meditations that are in this program as well as others, that's always the starting point of all the meditations.
Always.
But it'll be nice to have just a standalone, guided meditation for that.
Right. And we never, at least in the Eastern camps, a lot of times they never do relaxation for the point of relaxation. It's always pushed into Relaxation is to put you into that sort of, let's say, a profound neutral state, so that then whatever you're doing for meditation at that point, whatever exercise you're doing at that point, you're gleaning the most benefit from that. So, but in this case, we're going to do it as a standalone. But what I would say with that is, keeping with some of the principle of that idea is, which I think is relatively correct, is that, and this goes along with everything that we do. Like, one of the things that I'm constantly doing and teaching people is, state what you're doing before you do it. What are you doing? Like, if you're going in to meditate, what is the purpose of the meditation? State what the purpose is and what you want the goal to be. Ask yourself or tell yourself, I'm here now to, do this, and sometimes I leave it as an open-ended question. What do I need to do within this exercise? What will I need to do within this exercise to bring me to this goal that I'm trying to achieve? And then I go through the exercise. And so, and I follow the cues. It's not just willy-nilly. I'm sticking with the principle of the relaxation or the meditation or whatever it is, or any exercise. But I always have that orientation toward the goal. And so, and I think that's really important, because it keeps you on track. It's the course correction again, right? It's like, I'm going to meditate. Well, what are you doing there? I have to think about it. It's like, no, you should know why you're going in there. It's like, well, I'm doing this because he told me to do it. No, that's not good enough. It's like, what is the purpose for doing it? How is this going to help you with the goal that you're trying to achieve? Even if you're not sure how that technique is working directly toward getting you closer to that goal, you should at least say, like, I'm in here to meditate to get me closer to my goal, and state the goal. Don't just say goal, but state the goal, what it is. And that, one of those things in the back of my mind constantly is that I go in there and I do my work knowing that I will not get up until I've changed. And that's pretty easy. It's like, if you're doing it, you're changing. So it's like, it doesn't mean that everything that you do is going to be perfect. And sometimes we fall flat, of course, certain things come up or whatever. It's just a bad day. It's a bad meditation day, or whatever it is, right? And so, all kinds of distractions or whatever it is, and I keep having to go back to my relaxation, and I just start up again, and then something else tweaks me, and I gotta back to my relaxation again. But it's okay. It's the persistence in doing that.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you're mentioning that, because one of the people that we listen to a lot talks a lot about how, if you don't have a goal, you can't experience positive emotion either, because we're such, I think the term is cybernetic creatures, where
right.
we're always like, we gauge where we are in reference to a goal.
Right.
So it's like, and if we don't have that orientation, we're kind of lost.
Right. And also, why we put so much attention on knowing yourself, right? Because if you don't know where your starting point is, how are you going to get to your goal? Mm-hmm. If you don't have a clear idea of where you are right now, where do you take off to get to your, which direction do you go to get to your destination? That's the idea. So those two things are really implicit in, being able to achieve that, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to get to your goal.
Yeah.
So you need to be oriented, to yourself as a starting point. Again, when you step into the unknown, the only reference point you have is yourself. And if you're not clear about yourself, that's a candlelight in the fog. It's very diffuse and amorphous, and you're not really sure where it is, right? So you need to know yourself implicitly in order to, have a clear idea of your reference point, and then where you are as a starting point and where you're going to get, how are you going to get to that destination? What do I need to do first? What's going to be the most logical order, to push me through to my goal? How am I going to get there? So I think that that's important.
Right. And in reference to what you were saying before about not just doing relaxation for its own sake, but to do it with a to-do in mind, once you get into that relaxed state, would it be good at this stage of the course to do like the relaxation meditation or relaxation process, and then do a few minutes of like the wind breathing to
Sure.
see how it shifts from just doing it,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, like quickly
Yeah,
in the
I
middle
think
of the
that
day
that's
to,
perfect. Yeah, that's a perfectly fine example of doing that.
Okay.
Because from that relaxed state, of course, this is going to be much more open, as should be the rest of the body too, right?
yeah,
So anytime I start to get a hiccup here or whatever it is, it just means that I'm tensing up somewhere, and it doesn't actually have to be here, right? Could be here. A lot of times it's here, but it doesn't have to be here. It could just be, I'm holding, all of a sudden I'm holding my fist tense. What am I doing? It's like, if something startles me or something feels odd, you'll feel like, oh, I'm starting to clench over here, or, oh, geez, my legs are, tense. They're like trying to anchor myself down, right? So, relax, relax. It's like it's always got to be my first thing. It's when anything isn't quite working out the way I want it to, the first thing I do is just do a quick scan, just do a quick, relax, and let everything fall away, and then go right back to it and see if that doesn't kind of get you through that barrier, get you over that hump. A lot of times you'll find that that's the case until you really make it very clear in your mind that relaxation is the key to power, and focus, right? And not force. Force is, force is a bludgeon. It's just a big club. Yeah, it's powerful, but it's not very discerning, right? It just crushes everything, and including the thing that you're trying to enhance, right? So, you want to be able to, relax. And when I relax, I'm able to focus in a much more laser-like fashion, right? And it helps that, the rest of the energy that's holding this whole structure together is sort of tense, right? And when I relax that, I can shunt more of that energy to what I'm focusing on at the time. So my focus becomes much more laser-like, if that's the case. When I'm not relaxed, it doesn't work like that. It's too diffuse. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll go through the step-by-step relaxation.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Good. Okay.